President Biden is swinging through Florida today, delivering remarks on Social Security, also Medicare. And later tonight, he is scheduled to appear at a rally with Senate candidate Val Demings and gubernatorial candidate Charlie Crist. Recent polling shows that both those candidates are trailing their Republican rivals. Let's bring in Chief White House correspondent for CBS News, Nancy Cordes. Nancy, thank you for joining us. Florida voters. Florida used to be the premier swing state, and there's a lot of articles lately about how it may not swing anymore, at least for Democrats. Are there real concerns among Democrats that the appearance from President Biden may not have the intended effect?
I think there are concerns, Tony, that even if President Biden and every single Democratic luminary in the U.S. descended upon Florida, it probably would not help some of their major candidates get over the finish line. According to recent polling, Charlie Crist is down by up to double digits against the current Republican Governor Ron DeSantis. Val Demings also trailing Marco Rubio. So the theory is that President Biden can't hurt those candidates at this point. If anything, it's a last-ditch attempt to help them. But the reality is he's fulfilling a promise. Back when Charlie Crist first won the Democratic primary, he invited President Biden to go down there to Florida to campaign. That trip had to be postponed because of Hurricane Ian. So essentially, President Biden is fulfilling a promise that he made to Crist, and he's going to do some fundraising, which is badly needed. And, you know, there are a lot of deep pockets in Miami and elsewhere in Florida, so he's going to go down and do that as well. But you're right. It is surprising that just with a week to go before Election Day, that President Biden would be spending his time in a state where it's not really clear that his presence is going to help some of these key candidates get across the finish line.
Yeah, it's interesting, Nancy, hearing you say that that Crist is down so much that the president's appearance at this point can't really hurt him anymore. Wow. You know, we've been all remarking about how he's largely avoided holding these large rallies, all instead opting for official speeches. How is that strategy working from the White House to try and keep these appearances more low-key?
You know, if you think back to the presidential election in 2020, you saw much the same thing. Partly that was because of COVID, but partly there was also a concern that perhaps President Biden might not be able to draw the huge crowds that, let's say, former President Trump was able to do, and that he was more comfortable in a smaller setting. And so that's what we're seeing throughout this midterm election season as well. When he does go to a state to campaign, he's typically in a smaller setting. When you do see him with larger crowds, it tends to be in a bluer state, someplace like Maryland, for example, where he'll be visiting again towards the end of the week. He's also going to be going to California this week, which, again, not necessarily a state you'd think he'd go to in the last week of a midterm election, because Democrats typically fare pretty well there. But it gives you a sense of where candidates are asking for him and where they might not necessarily be asking for him, because for them it's a double-edged sword. It might excite the base, but it might turn off the independence that they need to win a general election.
Switching to former President Obama, who is in Nevada today. You mentioned independence. You mentioned the base. And I don't want to get too scientific about it, but when President Obama, former President Obama, goes to campaign, is he primarily there to get people excited in the base, or is he closing the deal with independents and undecided voters, or both?
All of the above.
Yeah.
You know, Joe Biden's approval ratings at this point are in the low 40s, according to most polls. Former President Obama enjoys a much healthier approval rating, partly because he's no longer in office. That tends to make everyone more popular when they're not actually having to make some of these hard decisions. But also, he's a great election closer. He is great on the stump. That is part of the reason that he won. He's known for it. He has a way of being able to tweak Republicans and kind of get to the heart of Democratic arguments against Republicans without appearing too mean, and frankly in a way that tends to go viral. And so he is in very high demand in this closing chapter of the midterm elections. Not only has he been asked to campaign everywhere, he's in Nevada today, he'll be in Arizona tomorrow, he's also been asked to cut ads, to do fundraisers, anything that he is willing to do. And the reality is that because he's no longer in office, he's sometimes able to say things that President Biden might not be able to say, because he may have to work with these Republicans after Election Day. He will have to work with them, especially if they win back control of the House or the Senate.
Always interesting to see those former presidents when they become more enlivened after no longer being in office. Nancy, always a pleasure. Thanks.
You got it.